Hiya. This is about how we need to get equality because without equality, we can't get rid of the propaganda. It's the inequality that creates excess power. Excess power corrupts, destroys everything, poisons everything. There's always corruption going on when there's excess power, whether you know it or not. So it's an absolute mess of a system we have, an absolute complete enabling of corruption. Because if power corrupts and we have excess power with billionaires and politicians of Westminster with the megaphones, then we've just got a constant corruption going on. The fact that there isn't school news every single minute of the day doesn't mean to say there isn't corruption going on. Of course there is. It's automatically corrupt. It is vile, and we've got to get rid of this vast, massive Mount Everest of criminality. For goodness sake, those people who say they're pro law and order, who put up with this, they need to get their heads tested because they are not pro law and order. They are very, very, very weak on crime. I'll go further. They support crime. They support it. They support the mind possessing. They support the vast inequality. They support people dying early because they're stressed and not being able to pay the bills. They support all of it. All of it. There isn't any of it they don't support. They are part of it. They are complicit. Or they are possessed. Their mind's possessed by this state superstructure, the propaganda matrix, into believing that a propaganda matrix is the way to go. It's not the way they'd word it, because propaganda, good gandists don't admit that they're propagandists. That's just the way it is. So, but it must end. And how does it end now? How does it end? How do we fix this? How do we get rid of the propaganda matrix? That's something that I'm so annoyed about when I go on Twitter, that a lot of the people who seem educated and stuff never seem to come up with a bloody plan. They might as well not be doing anything. And if you've got no idea how to deal with it, then what are you doing? I mean, like, there's probably stuff going on Pluto that should be solved. But I mean, I don't want to bloody well think about that because I can't do anything about it. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, like, you get my gist. I'm not saying there is some around Pluto, but you just understand what I mean. It's like they might as well be talking about solving a problem that happened like 200 years ago, because they can't do it. They can't solve it. So like, what is that? But there should be a thing that can do something about this. So don't just complain. Come up with the bloody solutions. Come up with the ideas. We've got to do something. This is not a bloody game. See, if you don't have any idea, you might as well be bloody well supporting the lot that you don't support. That seems simple to me. So sometimes I come up with policy ideas. Saw annoying Jones thing saying about 5% tax on wealth over £500,000. It raised 200 and something billion. And I went on Ask AI and said, what would a 10% tax on that do? And I said it would raise 292 billion. Now, I don't know the details or if that's accurate or not, but it does seem to raise a heck of a lot of money. And that is a real good class war policy we should do. Because, like I say, it's an absolute disgrace. Absolute disgrace. No one has been fighting for those without money, really. Yet the propaganda matrix never admits it. It sucks so much. There's not much the propaganda matrix say that even makes any sense. But I always give them, say, inflation, so something you have to think about, you have to factor in. But that can be done. Inflation can always be. It has been done already by the same people who criticise policies that could cause inflation. They've presided over them and made sure that it doesn't. It's not like the state went through Victorian times to what it is now, and it didn't have any inflation risk. So the very same people, the very same bloody political setups that complains about these things are the very ones that have presided over this. It's just ridiculous. It's like, it's all like that, though. It's all like that. You're forever fighting against insanity everywhere you look. Every turn you make, you see that insanity is everywhere. So how do they prevent these people who complain about the prospect of inflation? How do they deal with it to make sure inflation doesn't happen? Because secretly, they know how to do that. So, and this is how they do it. When you tax, right, and the whole of Germany knows this. Look, Germany, they openly talk about this. In Britain, they're all stupid about it, but they do it anyway. When government spends money, like goes out, and you haven't taxed it, but maybe it's because there's a shock, like it happens straight away, like I don't know, some like furlough or something. So the money goes out. They then tax in order to make sure you don't overheat the economy. Although furlough's a bad example there because the economy would crash. They just replaced the money. There was no risk of inflation. They were worried about the opposite effect of inflation. You know, a complete meltdown, a complete depression. But normally, say you're worried about overheating because the economy is going okay, and suddenly a ton of money goes out into society. The tax, in order to prevent inflation, don't tax because they have to, because money's just created, it's manufactured. So they're not taxing because they have to, because don't tax for the money reason that you think of tax to prevent inflation. That's what they always do. That's why they say don't borrow and spend, because if you borrow and spend, without taxing, then you get inflation. Obviously, because you're just putting money in the economy overheating. Right. So that's, for example, a big policy like UBI. You tax, but then now you say you just did the wealth tax I was going on about before. You could still get inflation because you aren't actually you're just putting money in the poor people's hands, and they'll cause inflation in like supermarket spending, whereas the wealthy will still supermarket spending, whether that won't make any difference. So you still get the inflation, I think. So what you do there is at first you'd have to make universal basic income. You'd have to tax it away from most people now. So the inflationary effect is very small, and you said to me, so there's this vast redistribution of income, wealth, and all this, but you're still making sure it's only going to a few. At the bottom, I said no. Over time, you bring more and more people into it. But just like over time, the state has grown, since the Victorian era. So there's not this. It's not that this cannot be dealt with. When you hear these arguments, it's not that they sort of got some reality to them, but they're used as an excuse. It's not that the state thinks, oh no, we'd love to do this, but we don't know. We just don't know how to stop the inflation happening. That's a total lie. They know how to stop the inflation happening. They know how to. And the reason why I mention the inflation policy is because it's the only thing that's got a bit of truth to it. The rest is just power and control completely. Their values are just power and control. Their motivations are power and control. They want to have a higher status. They want to be. If they were born if they were poor, they would not have these same values, because their values are about being power mad from narcissism, from the position they get into. And that is so anti-progressive, it's so anti-health, that it's just common sense. We have to deal with it because we're born into this bloody world where we are manipulated. State power is just the same as it's always been. It's absolutely hell-bent on looking after itself. End of story. And looking after its cartel. So the capitalists blackmail it as well. I'm on about seriously rich capitalists. I'm not on about someone who's got a little shop where they're doing a little bit of tidy business for themselves. I'm on about seriously multi-millionaire and billionaires, and corporations like the news media, that all make you want to vomit. So like, there's no excuse. There's no excuse for society not to look after its people. They make excuses. That's the propaganda. Now, this is just the tip of the iceberg, though, with the party politics. It's just the tip of the iceberg. You look at capitalism. This goes well beyond bloody politicians, doesn't it? It's bloody the rich oligarchs, etc., pulling the strings, being looked after by the state, being cared for by the state. Don't get these questions asked about inflation when they're getting a ton of money, do they? Don't get questions asked about how they're going to spend their money. Don't get questions asked about whether they merit their money. Just don't ask the questions there. Don't ask the questions there. Let them do what they want. But when it's the masses, then it's all like, oh, are you sure you wouldn't spend your money on drugs? So pathetic. It is so pathetic that it is insulting. It's insulting to all of us. It's not just insulting to some people, it's insulting to all of us, because all the studies show that doesn't happen. And besides, nobody asks the billionaires what if they're spending their money on drugs, because it's none of our fucking business. You don't go around a supermarket, people in suits looking in your basket, I've seen for wasting your money or not. It's our business whether we waste our money or not. I don't want to waste my money. Most people don't waste money, but it's none of their fucking business. It's just got to be said. It's got to be said. This is excuses to maintain power and control for the elites. They don't ask the elites these questions. They don't ever ask them. And by the way, if they did, if they were going around saying, oh, let's see what you're shopping on, that's a bit flash. That's wrong. They shouldn't be doing that. We should be just bloody well getting a fair society. Now, if people do wrong things, well, that doesn't mean to say the rest of us shouldn't get what is our right to live. So the fact that a minority of people will spend their money wrongly, whether they're bloody rich or poor, doesn't mean to say the rest of us have to suffer because of it. That is irrelevant. That is like saying that we should all go to prison because some people harm other people by physically assaulting them. So we should all go down, take us all down. That's not true. We shouldn't. And this is the same thing exactly. So you talk like the new political party, yeah, but it needs to be it needs to understand that the state is a whole massive narrative propaganda matrix that is just ubiquitous. It's everywhere. Ubiquitous. How do you pronounce that word? I'm not 100% certain. I don't often say it. It means where it's everywhere. It's just constantly all around. You just need to get a grips with that. So the capitalism, I mean, super rich capitalists, corporations, news media, oligarchs, the military, the news media, the megaphones, it's all of that stuff. That's the state. That's the state. That's what we're dealing with. Political parties are part of that, but it's just the tip of the iceberg. Most of it you can't see that's beneath the sea. So we need to get a grips with all of that. So when I say new political party, I don't mean some like little colourful little vibe new party that's going to have a nice little image, it's going to be nice polished. Do that, but bloody well know that that's just this tiny millimetre thing. The rest of it is huge. It's immense. You need to see the iceberg, not just the fucking little top of it. Like I mean, it's like just so obvious. Don't just focus on the little tiny bit of party politics. If we do that, we get nowhere. We need to, and what do we do with the state superstructure? What do we do when we see the vast majority of the state? We decentralize it. We get rid of it. So in other words, the news media becomes just local TV news, local newspapers. They're not corrupt because they haven't had excess power. Not like the Murdoch multinational billionaire-owned news media corporations, unelected, that goes on for decades and decades and decades till he dies and he passes it on to his family. to propagandas instead of himself. It's like, and in multiple nations, it's like not like that. Well, what do we do with things like that then? We, such as we come in, we see this multinational corrupt news media corporations. What we do is we educate the people by holding an inquiry about the historical corruption. That'll get rid of them. That comes as part of educating the public on the propaganda, the science of propaganda. There's no excuse for us to fail to decentralize away from ourselves. So like once we've done set all this in motion, we have a society based on peace and equality. We end our link with the US empire. You know, I'm not anti-American people. I'm anti their state superstructure. We end our own state superstructure in the UK. We end our relation to the state superstructure in the US. Now, so there's no link to the US empire. So we end up with I don't know, People's Court, something like that, or Supreme Court that upholds the Constitution of peace and equality, guaranteeing we never return to the criminal racket of the past. There's no excuse not to decentralize. You can't say, oh, well, we're in power now and we're all really good people, we're nice and we're never going to do anything wrong. The reason why that is such bullshit is because even if it were true, you're still leaving everything intact for future propaganda matrix to reassert itself. Adolf Hitler said he liked the UK system. That says it all. It means that he could take it over and do all the shite that he did in Germany, except do it to British people instead. Well, that will go. He wouldn't like the system I'd create, that's for certain, because it would be anti-power trippers like himself. There's never been any sanity or balls in UK politics. Never. Can we not in my lifetime? Can this be done by? We need to destroy all of it. We need to just destroy all of it so we can actually do the stuff I'm saying here. So, for instance, that news media stuff, that can be done. We can destroy them. So it's a huge task, but what ultimately appeals to me about all of this is the end of mind poisoning. And if you said back to me, so why all the social political stuff, I would answer because it's the vast inequality that is used to psychologically manipulate people. If power is not excessive, then it's impossible to manipulate the people because the manipulation requires the megaphones. That's why these power trippers always want a massive voice to get out to millions of people. So they tend to concentrate power and not spread it out. And then they have this vast capitalist wealth, billionaires and all that, they're constantly blackmailing them. So it's like a cartel. All this stuff, the news media, the politicians, the billionaires, the multimillionaires. And just in case all the propaganda matrix collapses, get the army out and kill those bastards. That means kill people like me and you. Literally kill. Literally kill. I don't mean like, propaganda. I mean, if propaganda collapses, then you have to get the army on us. Because all they want is power. So that's the video. It's a call to action.